My name is Emily. I am 32 years old and I live in a small town in Ohio. From outside, my life looks quiet, normal, and maybe even beautiful. I have a small house with white walls, flowers in the yard, and neighbors who wave when I pass by. People think I am doing fine. They see me going to work, buying groceries, walking home, smiling politely. But they don't know. Inside these walls, I live with silence. Inside my chest, I carry a storm that never ends. Sometimes I sit by the window at night holding an old wedding photo in my hands. In that picture I am smiling. My husband is holding my hand. We look happy, like two people ready to build a life together. But every time I look at it now, my heart breaks a little more. Because that life is gone. That smile was a lie. And I have been living with that lie for years. I remember the first nights after he left. I would cry until my pillow was wet, then hide it in the morning so no one could see. I wanted people to believe I was strong, that I could move forward. But the truth is, I was broken. I was ashamed to admit that the person I trusted most had turned into a stranger. I tell myself every day, Emily, you are okay. You will heal. But then I pass by the coffee shop we used to visit, or I smell the cologne he wore, and suddenly I feel like I can't breathe. My heart races, my hands shake, and the memories come back stronger than ever. The hardest part is pretending. Pretending that I don't care. Pretending that he didn't already build a new life without me. Pretending that my story didn't end before it had even begun. I once believed marriage meant forever. I believed love was enough. But last week everything I thought I knew shattered into pieces. Because last week, I saw him again. And he was not alone. He was standing on the street smiling. Holding another woman's hand. And when he introduced her, my heart stopped beating for a second. He called her his wife. Last week I saw him, standing with another woman, calling her his wife. When I first got married, people around me said I was lucky. They told me I had a good man, a safe home, and a future to look forward to. And for a while I believed them. Our house was not big, but it was warm. We painted the kitchen walls yellow because I thought it made the mornings brighter. He bought me little things. Flowers from the store, my favorite coffee beans, sometimes a small gift like earrings. To the outside world we were perfect. Neighbors smiled at us, my mother said I had found stability, and friends would tell me they wished they had what I had. But what they never saw was my silence. Every morning I would cook breakfast and watch him read the news. He would kiss my forehead quickly before leaving for work, and I would smile. On weekends we cleaned the yard together, cooked dinner, and sometimes watched movies. It all looked like love. But inside my heart felt like an empty room. I tried to feel joy, but it was like water slipping through my fingers. At first I blamed myself. Maybe I was too tired, too cold, too difficult to love. So I worked harder. I made sure his shirts were ironed, his meals ready, his birthdays special. I tried to laugh at his jokes even when I felt like crying. I built a picture of happiness, hoping that one day I would feel it for real. But love is not something you can force. He would look at me sometimes with soft eyes, and I would feel guilty for not feeling the same. I told myself, Emily, this is marriage. Nobody is happy all the time. This is normal. But late at night, when he slept peacefully beside me, I would stare at the ceiling and wonder, is this all there is? One evening he came home carrying groceries and a smile. He had cooked for me that night, pasta with sauce he had learned from his mother. He poured me a glass of wine, lit a candle, and said, Emily, I think it's time we talk about our future. My hands froze around the glass. He looked so excited, his eyes shining like a boy planning something wonderful. He spoke about children, about painting a baby's room, about family vacations. He talked about a bigger house with a backyard where kids could play. I nodded. I smiled. But inside something cracked. I could barely hear his words over the sound of my own heart racing. The thought of children, the thought of building more life with him, did not fill me with hope. It filled me with fear. I felt trapped in a life I had chosen but did not fully want. I excused myself that night, saying I was tired, that I needed sleep. He kissed my cheek and whispered, I know you'll come around, Emily. We'll be happy. But when I went to bed, I curled up on the edge of the mattress, tears running down my face. Because the truth was clear. I was already living in a prison. A prison that looked beautiful from the outside but locked me in from within. The next morning I went through the motions again. I smiled. I cooked. I asked about his work. But every time I looked at him I wondered if he could see it, the emptiness in my eyes, the weight in my chest. And then one day while folding laundry I found something in his jacket pocket. At first I thought it was just a receipt. But when I opened the paper my hands began to shake. It wasn't a receipt. It was a note. A note in handwriting I didn't recognize. It said only a few words. Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again. I dropped the paper as if it had burned me. My whole body went cold. My knees felt weak and I had to sit down before I fell. My breath came fast, sharp, like I had been running even though I hadn't moved. I stared at the note for a long time, my mind screaming questions I didn't want answered. Was he seeing someone else? Was my prison not just emotional but built on lies? I wanted to confront him right then. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth. But instead I folded the note back and placed it exactly where I had found it. That night when he came home he kissed me like always. He asked about dinner, about my day. He looked normal, calm, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed for me. And from that moment, every smile, every kiss, every word he spoke felt like poison. He made me dinner. I said thank you. Then I found something in his jacket, and my hands started shaking. I sat at the kitchen table with the note in my hands. The paper was thin. It smelled like his cologne and the dust of his jacket. I kept reading the same line again and again. Last night was perfect. Can't wait to see you again. My eyes did not cry. They just felt heavy, like they were holding back a small sea. I folded the note and unfolded it. My hands shook. I could hear the refrigerator hum, the clock tick, the neighbor's dog bark far away. Everything sounded normal. Nothing was normal. I told myself, breathe, Emily. I made tea. I watched the water boil. I did simple things so I would not fall. But the note opened a door inside me. It was a door I thought I had locked years ago. Behind it was a memory I did not want to touch. Before my husband, let me call him Michael, I loved someone else. His name was Jake. I was 26. I worked at a small bookstore on Main Street in Cleveland. The shop had a bell on the door and soft music playing all day. He came in one afternoon wearing a gray hoodie and a tired smile. He asked for a book about hiking in the national parks. He said he wanted to breathe new air. I said, I like safe streets and short walks. He laughed. I remember that laugh. It was easy like summer. Jake began to visit the store every week. He would ask me what to read. He would buy coffee for me from the place across the street and stand near the counter while I checked out customers. He asked if I liked sunsets or sunrises. I said sunsets. He said, good. We can watch them after work. I did not date much before him. I was careful. My parents split when I was a teenager. My father left in a quiet way. He put his coat on one afternoon in March and said he needed fresh air. He did not come back. I learned to keep my feelings in small boxes. I thought if I was calm, life would be calm with me. But Jake felt like light through a window. He was kind in gentle ways. He sent texts that said, you home safe. He brought me warm soup when I was sick. He took photos of the sky and sent them to me with a line like, wish you were here. We did not travel far, but when I was with him I felt like I could breathe in a new way. I let my boxes open a little. A year passed. He got a job offer in another state. It was good money and a chance to grow. He said, it is only for a while. We can make it work. I will come back. I believed him because I wanted to believe him. We made plans. We talked about saving money. We said we would visit each other every month. For a few months it was okay. He called at night. We laughed about small things. He asked about my day. I told him about the new books, the funny customers, the silly songs that played on repeat. He said he missed me. I said I missed him more. Then the calls got shorter. Then the texts came late. Then there were gaps. Whole days without a message. When I asked, he said work was heavy, that he was tired. I told myself to be patient. I told myself this was normal. One night I saw a photo on social media. He was at a party. His arm was around a woman I did not know. Maybe it was nothing. But the next day when I called him he did not answer. Then a text came at midnight. Sorry. Busy. Talk later. Later never came. Weeks went by. I felt like I was living inside a long, gray afternoon. Finally, he wrote, "I need time." No call. No plan. No talk. Just those words. The last message said, "You deserve more. I'm sorry." After that, silence. The kind that eats your sleep and your appetite. The kind that makes you walk slowly so your body does not crack. I kept working at the bookstore. I smiled at customers. I made tea. I went home and cried into a towel so the neighbors would not hear. I told myself, do not call him. Do not beg. Do not chase. I did not call. I did not beg. I did not chase. I just broke quietly like a cup that looks whole until you try to pour water into it. A month later I met Michael. It was not a movie moment. There were no bright lights, no loud music. I was at the DMV waiting for my number to be called. He was behind me in line holding a folder and tapping his foot. He said the coffee from the machine tasted like rainwater. I laughed even though it was not funny. I think I laughed because I was tired of crying. Michael was steady. He texted when he said he would. He showed up on time. He asked what I liked to eat and then actually bought those things at the store. He fixed a broken cabinet in my kitchen without making a big deal. When my mother had a small surgery, he drove us there, waited, and drove us back. He did not ask for praise. He just did things. I remember the first time he asked, "Are you okay?" He said it while washing dishes. His tone was soft. I said, "Yes, I'm fine." I was not fine. I did not know how to say, "I am scared to be left again. I am scared to love again. I am scared to be myself again." So I smiled and said I was okay. We dated for 11 months. He asked me to marry him in the park near the big fountain. There were kids playing and a woman walking her dog. It was a quiet afternoon. He did not kneel. He just held my hands and said, "I want to build a simple life with you." I knew he meant it. I said yes because I wanted a simple life too. I wanted a door that locked, a kitchen with yellow paint, a man who did not disappear. People said we were a good match. My mother said, "He is safe." My friends said, "He is kind." I said, "He is here." I thought presence was enough. I thought steady love would fill the cracks that Jake left in me. I thought time would make new roots. I wanted time to wash the old names away. I did not tell Michael everything about Jake. He knew the outline. He knew a man left, that it hurt, that I took a while to stand up again. But he did not know the small things. He did not know how I still woke at 2 a.m. some nights and reached for a phone that stayed dark. He did not know how my heart raced when I heard a text sound in a quiet room. He did not know how the smell of rain could make me sad because the last day with Jake was wet and gray. Once, 3 months after our wedding, Michael asked, "Do you love me?" He was not angry. He just looked careful, like a person holding a thin glass. I froze. The true answer was not simple. I did love his goodness. I loved his steady hands. I loved the way he closed the cereal box and wiped the counter. But the old part of me, the broken part, was quiet and cold. It did not speak. I said, "I want a good life with you." He nodded. He kissed my forehead. He did not ask again. I was both grateful and afraid. Love, I learned, is not a switch. It is a slow light. Mine stayed dim. I kept hoping it would grow if I pretended hard enough. I cooked, I washed, I laughed, I planned. I believed pretending was practice, and practice makes real. But pretending is not healing. It is only quiet. So when I found that note in his jacket, those short words written in a neat round hand, it did more than hurt me as a wife. It touched the old place where I once believed I was not enough. It whispered, "Here we are again, Emily. You are the woman people leave." I hated that voice. But in that moment I heard it. I wanted to be angry at Michael, and I was. But under the anger there was a deeper ache with an old name. Jake. The ghost I married to forget stood up inside my chest again. He looked at me with that easy summer smile and said nothing. I hated that silence too. That week I moved through our house like a visitor. I folded clothes and thought of the laundry basket Jake used to carry. I scrubbed the sink and heard the echo of a laugh from a bookstore afternoon. I made tea and remembered his text, "You home safe." It is strange how the past can fill a room that is already full of furniture. On Thursday night I sat on the couch with a blanket around my shoulders. Michael was late. The TV was on but I was not watching. My phone buzzed. I looked down expecting a message from a friend or a work reminder. It was a number I did not know. The message said, "Emily? It's been a long time." I stared at it. My heart beat hard against the blanket. My hands felt numb. I typed, "Who is this?" and then deleted it. I turned the phone face down on my leg. I waited. Another message came, "It's Jake." For a full minute I could not move. The name felt like a stone dropped into a still pond. The water broke into circles. The circles reached every part of me. I picked up the phone. I did not answer. I read the next message, "I'm sorry for the past. Are you okay?" I wanted to ask him why. Why no? Why ever? I wanted to say I had moved on even if moving felt more like standing still in a different room. I wanted to say I was fine. I was not fine. I was a wife holding a stranger's note from her husband and a ghost's message from her past. I put the phone on the table and pressed my hands together. I told myself, "Do not reply." I told myself, "Do not open doors you closed with pain." But the truth is the door was already open. The note from the jacket had turned the handle. Jake's message pushed it wider. I sat there until the screen went dark. The house was quiet. The clock ticked. A car passed outside. I could hear my own breath, slow and uneven. I thought about the girl I used to be in the bookstore. I thought about the woman I am now in this small kitchen. I thought about the way I chose safety over truth. I thought about the way safety can still break. I turned the phone on again. Jake had sent one more line, "If you don't want to talk, I understand. I just wanted to say I think about you sometimes." I locked the screen. I felt tired in my bones. I wished I could delete the past. But the past lives inside the body. It waits. It does not rush. It knows the small ways to return. I stood up and washed my tea mug. I dried it with the blue towel. I put it back on the shelf. I told myself, "You can choose what to do next." I did not know what that choice would be. I only knew this. The ghost I married to forget was back and the man I married was far away even when he was in the same room. I buried the past. Until it texted me again, after 4 years of silence. The night Jake's message came, I told myself I would not answer. I placed my phone face down, turned off the light and tried to sleep beside Michael. His back was turned to me, his breathing steady, like he was far away even though he was only inches from me. I wanted to whisper his name. I wanted to ask him if he loved me, if he ever truly loved me. I wanted to show him the note I found in his jacket, to scream that I knew that I wasn't blind. But I stayed quiet. I stared into the dark and listened to the silence between us. That silence became my daily life. In the mornings I put on a smile like makeup. I brewed coffee, set toast on the table and asked about his meetings. He nodded, gave short answers, kissed my cheek quickly and left. Sometimes he didn't even look at me. I told myself this was just a phase. Maybe he was stressed, maybe work was heavy. Maybe I was overthinking. So I pretended. I laughed at his small jokes when we had dinner. I nodded when he talked about bills or errands. I cleaned the house as if wiping away dust could wipe away doubt. But the truth sat heavy in my chest. One Saturday my friend Claire came over. She has known me since college. She carried a box of muffins and her usual bright smile. We sat in the kitchen sipping tea while Michael was out. She studied me with her sharp eyes and asked, "Emily, are you okay? You look tired." I forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just busy." She shook her head. "No, not busy. You look like someone carrying a love that isn't yours." Her words cut through me. I wanted to tell her everything. The note, the silence, the text from Jake. But I swallowed it. Instead I said softly, "I guess I've just been pretending too much." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Pretending doesn't heal you. It only hides the wound. And wounds don't heal when you hide them." Her voice was kind, but it made my eyes sting. I turned away so she wouldn't see the tears. That night I couldn't stop hearing her words. Pretending doesn't heal you. I repeated them in my mind as I cooked dinner. When Michael came home late, he barely touched his plate. He said he was tired, kissed my forehead and went upstairs. I sat at the table alone, pushing food around, wondering if Claire was right. The next week Michael and I had dinner at a quiet restaurant. I wore the dress he once said he liked, hoping maybe it would bring something back. He talked about work, about a trip he might need to take soon. I nodded, my smile stiff. Then, while he was in the restroom, I glanced at his phone that he had left on the table. It lit up with a message. My heart raced. I didn't want to look, but my eyes caught the words before I could stop them. It said, "I miss you already." The name wasn't saved. Just a number. But I knew. When he came back, I forced a smile, my fingers trembling under the table. He asked if I wanted dessert. I shook my head. My voice was small when I said, "I'm not hungry." The silence between us on the drive home felt louder than any argument. Later that week, something happened I will never forget. I was in the bedroom folding laundry when Michael walked in. He paused at the door, watching me. I didn't notice at first. I was humming softly, trying to distract myself. Then I heard him say, almost like a whisper, "Who are you pretending for, Emily?" I froze, the shirt in my hand slipping to the floor. I turned to him. His eyes were sad, not angry. Tired but not cruel. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice shaking. He sighed, leaning against the door frame. "You act like everything is fine. You laugh, you smile, you cook, you clean. But I see it. The distance. The silence in your eyes. You think I don't notice." Tears filled my eyes and I shook my head. I'm trying to make this work." He looked down at the floor, then back up at me. His voice was soft, almost broken. "Pretending doesn't heal, Emily. Not for you, not for me." The words hit me like Clara's had. It was as if the whole world was telling me the same truth. I couldn't hold it anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed and finally cried in front of him. My body shook with sobs I had been holding back for years. Michael sat beside me, but he didn't touch me. He just watched, his own eyes shining. After a long silence, he said, "I know." I lifted my head, confused. "Know what?" He swallowed hard. "That you're not happy. That maybe you never were." The room was heavy with words unsaid. I wanted to speak, to deny, to confess, to explain. But nothing came out. Only tears. That night we didn't fight. We didn't argue. We just sat in silence, side by side, two people who had built a life together but couldn't fill the spaces in each other's hearts. I lay awake long after he fell asleep. I thought about Jake's text still unanswered on my phone. I thought about Clara's warning. I thought about Michael's sad eyes when he said pretending doesn't heal. And I knew. I couldn't keep living like this. She said I looked like someone carrying a love that wasn't mine. That's when I stopped pretending. The morning after I cried in front of Michael, the air in our house felt different. Heavy but also clear, like the sky before a storm finally breaks. We didn't speak much. He made coffee, I buttered toast, and we sat across from each other in silence. Every small sound, the clink of the spoon, the scrape of the chair, felt louder than words. For days after, I kept thinking we need to talk. But every time I opened my mouth, fear closed it again. Fear of breaking something that was already cracked. Fear of hearing words I wasn't ready for. One evening I found the courage. It wasn't planned. We were sitting in the living room. The TV was on, but neither of us was watching. I turned to him and said very softly, "Michael, we can't keep living like this." He muted the TV. His face was calm, but his eyes looked tired, as if he had been waiting for this moment longer than I realized. "I know," he said. My throat was dry. My hands twisted together in my lap. "I found the note," I whispered. He didn't look shocked. He didn't ask what note. He just closed his eyes for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I thought you did." A part of me wanted him to deny it, to tell me it meant nothing. But another part of me already knew. "Why, Michael?" My voice cracked. "Why her? Why not fight for us?" He looked at me and there was no anger, no defense. Just sadness. "Because I felt you slipping away long before that note. I felt it in your eyes, in your touch. I thought maybe I could pretend too. Pretend we were enough for each other. But pretending only lasts so long." Tears blurred my vision. "I tried," I whispered. "I tried so hard to love you the way you deserve." He reached out but stopped halfway, his hand hanging between us. "And I tried to be the man who could heal your past. But I can't compete with ghosts, Emily. I can't compete with what you never let go of. We sat there, broken pieces between us, too sharp to touch. The silence felt almost gentle now, like it was giving us space to breathe truth at last. Finally I asked, "Do you love her?" His eyes softened. "Yes." His voice was steady but his hands trembled. "And Emily, I remarried." The words hit me like a stone. I felt my body go cold. My breath caught in my chest. "Remarried." He said it so quietly, as if even he was afraid of the sound. I stared at him, my lips parted but no words coming. My world, already fragile, shattered into smaller pieces. He looked down at his hands. "I didn't want to hurt you more. I thought maybe if I stayed quiet we could exist together until you were ready to leave. But that wasn't fair to either of us." Tears slipped down my cheeks. My voice was small, almost childlike. "So all this time, I was living with someone who already belonged to someone else." He nodded, pain written all over his face. "I'm sorry, Emily. I swear I never wanted to break you. But I couldn't keep lying. Not to you. Not to myself." I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something, to let anger fill the room. But no anger came. Only a quiet sadness, deeper than any storm. I stood up slowly, wiping my face with the back of my hand. "I can't stay here," I whispered. He nodded again. His voice broke when he said, "I know." I walked to the door, my legs shaking under me. My heart pounded, but it was a strange calm too, like the end of a long fight. I picked up my bag. My hand touched the doorknob. And then behind me his voice came one last time. Soft. Honest. Almost tender. "Thank you," he said. I turned slightly confused. "For what?" He met my eyes, his face pale but steady. "For not lying one last time." My chest ached. Tears blurred my vision again. I opened the door and stepped out into the night air. The sky was dark, but the stars were faint above me. I closed the door behind me, and with it I closed the life I had been pretending to live. I walked down the street with only my heartbeat for company. And though I was broken, I knew this was the moment everything truly ended. I left. And as I closed the door, he said, "Thank you for not lying one last time." The first morning after I left Michael's house, I woke up in a small apartment I had rented weeks earlier just in case. The walls were bare. The kitchen smelled of fresh paint. There was only one chair, one table, one bed. It felt empty, but it was mine. I made coffee in a chipped mug, sat by the window and listened to the world outside. Cars passed, children laughed, a dog barked. Life kept moving even though mine felt like it had stopped. At first the silence scared me. For years I had filled my days with someone else's presence. Michael's footsteps, his keys dropping in the bowl, his soft voice asking about dinner. Now there was nothing. Only the hum of the fridge and the sound of my own breathing. But slowly that silence became softer. It stopped feeling like a punishment and started feeling like space. Space for me. I began walking every evening. Just simple walks down quiet streets, past small shops and old trees. I carried a notebook in my bag. When thoughts grew heavy, I wrote them down. At first the pages were full of pain. Why wasn't I enough? Why did they all leave me? But with time the words changed. I wrote about sunsets, about the smell of bread from the bakery, about the way the sky turned pink above the rooftops. One Sunday I sat in the park and watched families playing. Children ran with kites, couples shared sandwiches. I thought it would hurt to see love again. But instead I felt something different. Hope. Because if love could exist for them, maybe one day in a new way it could exist for me too. A few weeks later, while unpacking a box I had carried from the old house, I found something unexpected. It was a small envelope tucked between books. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a short note in Michael's handwriting. It said, "Emily, if you find this one day, I hope you know that I did love you. Maybe not in the way you needed, but in the only way I knew how. I wish you peace even if it's without me." Tears slid down my cheeks as I held the paper. For the first time I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel betrayal. I just felt release. His words didn't heal everything, but they gave me permission to let go. I folded the note carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Then I put it in my journal, not as a wound but as part of my story. Healing is not quick. Some nights I still wake up reaching for someone who isn't there. Some mornings I still feel a shadow beside me. But day by day I am learning that being alone is not the same as being empty. I read more now. I cook for myself, not for someone else's approval. I water the small plant on my windowsill and smile when it grows new leaves. I write letters I never send. I breathe deeper. Sometimes I think about Jake. Sometimes I think about Michael. Both names carry pain. But they also carry lessons. Jake taught me that love without roots can drift away. Michael taught me that pretending is not living. And I am teaching myself now that healing is possible, even after the hardest storms. Tonight I am sitting by the window again, watching the streetlights flicker on. The air is cool, the city quiet. I close my eyes and whisper to myself, "You are still here. You are still whole." And maybe that is enough for now. If you've ever felt like me, you're not alone. Tell me your story in the comments.